Hey guys, here's part 2 of mine and Shannon's love story. I hope you enjoy it as much as the first part. If you like what you see, subscribe, comment down below, and here we go. In the meantime, I think it was towards the end of our 20s, you joined a little movement known as Occupy.
So that was, let's see, the end of 2011.
We were in our late 20s. And I would say my political standing right now is probably right of center. But I used to be much more right, much more conservative. To be clear, I was never religious conservative in that I was anti-LGBT or anything. I've always been pro-LGBT even before I knew I was part of the community. I thought I was an ally. So I wasn't conservative in the social sense, but I've always been conservative in the fiscal sense and still am to a great extent, and used to be even more conservative. And I would say now you're probably left of center, but you used to be way more liberal.
I used to be extremely liberal, progressive. I was definitely an SJW there for a while, and still am to some extent.
I wouldn't go that far.
To some extent.
Maybe a little bit.
So yeah, when Occupy Wall Street came up, I believed in the core message that they were spreading, which originally was getting money out of politics. I am still behind that cause.
I actually, believe it or not, support that as well. And it wasn't Occupy itself I had an issue with, it was their methodology to it. And I still feel like working within the system sparks more change than trying to fight against it. But that's a whole nother topic that isn't important. What is important is that she got involved in her local Occupy movement in protesting, and I was very against it. But even that wasn't the problem. What the problem really turned into is she would tell me she was going to be on Skype at X time in the evening to talk to me, and then she wouldn't even message me to tell me she wasn't going to show up. She just wouldn't show up, and when I confronted her about it, her response was basically, well, I had this to do, and she was treating it like being there for me when she said she was going to be was living her life by the computer, and she had this real life thing going on. And I'm like, well, I get that, but then don't tell me you're going to be somewhere when you're not.
I was a bad friend, honestly, at the time, and I kind of prioritized Occupy and what I was doing with them above most everything else,
including me, which again, while I'm not going to deny that I was jealous, the biggest problem was being blown off altogether when she said she was going to do something, which led us into the biggest fight of our friendship.
Yeah.
And I thought our friendship was over. And in the midst of this fight, she couldn't understand why I was acting like a jealous ex, which led to a discussion of why I had acted like a jealous ex through so many of her relationships over the years.
Because to be fair, it seemed like that every time I would get into a relationship, she would get pissy.
Which is partly true. Only partly true. No, really, it's only partly true. I would. Unless I thought that the person you were with was actually solid.
Okay, so there was one person like
Two.
that. Two?
I was cool when you were with your first love until he got abusive, because even he had me fooled. And then there was a gentleman that you met on the internet, I believe.
Oh, yes.
That I thought was solid.
He was a good guy.
And I
didn't work.
I was cool with him too.
Yeah.
I was only jealous when I thought you were with somebody that wasn't good for you.
Which was most of them, to be fair.
And exactly, I was right. Every time I felt that way, I was right. Your first love had me fooled too. I still don't understand how that one happened, but regardless.
He could be very charming.
So, yes, I would act jealous because I knew those relationships weren't good for her. And I think in the back of my mind, even if I didn't want to admit it to myself, I knew that I could make her happier. But if she was with someone I thought would make her happy, I didn't act jealous. Anyway, so all this questioning of why I was acting so jealous came up in our big fight. And I didn't want to say the words, but I was so angry at that point. So very, very angry. And so frustrated and so emotional that I said, because I have feelings for you and I want you to come to Texas and build a life with me. And it wasn't well received in the middle of a fight.
Yeah, I was honestly completely blindsided. I was like, whoa. Like, I remember reading those words and I was like, whoa. What? Why would she say that right now? And I'm just like angrily emailing back. And yeah, I didn't receive it well because, I mean, we were in the middle of a fight. I felt like she was trying to deflect and distract me from being angry, and that made me angrier.
Which isn't what I was doing. I had just finally reached the point that I couldn't keep it in anymore. We were in this fight and I had no other excuses to explain my behavior at this point. I couldn't explain it away any other way but finally telling the truth. And so it wasn't well received, and she basically told me that was never going to happen, and not wanting to mess things up any more than they already were, I let that go. Our friendship very nearly ended.
We didn't talk for at least 6 months. That happened like in the spring, and I think we didn't talk again until the fall.
I think it was closer to winter.
Maybe.
Because
it was a while.
Because I had a friend come in that fall for Comic-Con, and I remember specifically telling her, I think we were mildly talking, because I remember specifically telling her, we're kind of talking now, but I don't think we'll ever be best friends again. I don't think it'll ever be what it was.
Here we are.
I was wrong. So anyway, we did finally make up. It did take time, but we did finally make up. And
hold on, because I remember I had been trying to call her, and I finally got a hold of her.
I was kind of ignoring her calls.
And I remember you saying, what are your intentions? I'm like, what? I was like, I was so nervous because I just wanted to fix things. I just wanted to make it right again. I missed my best friend.
And I didn't make it easy because she'd hurt me so bad, and I didn't want to go through that again. And I didn't make it easy for her to get my forgiveness.
No.
I made it very difficult. But we did finally patch things up. It took us a while to get as close as we were, but we did. Fast forward to your last relationship.
Yeah, fast forward to my last relationship. He was an older guy. He was 15 years older than me. So I was 32 at the time, 31, 32, and he was in his late 40s. I knew he was an alcoholic, and I told him up front, I don't deal with that well. I don't put up with it. And he's like, no, I'm not like that. And I'm like, okay. And he ended up needing a place to stay, and me being the nice person let him move in with me. Anyway, it didn't last long. And he had a bad addiction to alcohol. It was deep. And long story short, he ended up stealing money from me to buy things to drink that are not liquor, that one might use to swish around their mouth and spit out, but he drank it. And it was really sad. And so as soon as I found out that he stole money from me, I ended that. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. And he actually passed away the year after that. Was it the next summer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was really young, and his addiction was so bad that it killed him. And it's like really weird to think about, but I think, underneath that, he underneath the addiction and the depression that he medicated with the addiction, I think he was a good person. He tried to be a good person, but he had a lot of demons. So, and it's really sad. It still makes me sad. I'm like gonna tear up. But anyway, I broke up with him, and it was right after Halloween, because I remember we spent Halloween together, and it was just a couple days after Halloween that we broke up. So that was the beginning of November. And after that, I was like, you know what? It's so hard to like find a job out here and just make things work. Everything's a struggle. I need a fresh start. So I planned to move to Texas the following year at the end of March. I was like, I'm going to get my tax return, and then, I can just pack everything up, and I can move to Texas and, find a place to live or whatever, and get back on my feet and just figure things out. I didn't have a great plan.
We're now at the time, living in a different part of Texas than where I grew up, which is where we still are. And I told her, come out here. There is much more opportunity in this area of Texas, and I'll help you. Whatever it takes, you won't want for a roof over your head. I'll make sure that you and your kids stay fed, and we'll figure this out, but you need to come here.
So fast forward to mid-February, I had still been planning to move in late March. I didn't have a job. I had my tax return, and I was just like bleeding money. And I'm like, you know what? If I don't do this sooner, I'm not going to be able to do it, I'm going to run out of money. So, one night I went out, and I came home and went into my bedroom, and my window was open, and my brother's Xbox had been stolen. And that was the only thing that was taken, which is amazing because we had laptops and all kinds of other stuff. And that was really like the last straw for me. Coming home to find that someone had come into my house through my bedroom and taken something from my house, I just felt violated and afraid. And I went to my mom's that night because I was scared to stay at home. I told her, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna tie up my loose ends, and I'm leaving next weekend. Which she wasn't thrilled about.
And that's exactly what she did. And
that's what I did.
She got here. I found a fairly inexpensive extended stay hotel, and at that point I had moved back in with my mom and had been living with my mom and dad for a few years, trying to I'd gone through some mental health things, and severe depression, needed to get medicated, and so I had gone through, and then some other medical issues that had made it near impossible to live on my own up to that point. But I was finally healthy, and at the point that I really did need to get back out on my own, and my mom and dad agreed. Things were not going smoothly at that point. So from the time she got here, it didn't take very long that I was living in the extended stay with her.
Yeah.
And this is where things started to lead to this.
So what had happened was
What had happened was, no, there was another guy that I had fallen in love with and was very desperate to get his attention on me. And so one night we were in bed talking about it, and I was nervous because of my physical inexperience. Up to that point, I had only been intimate with 2 people, including kissing. And so I was very nervous because the gentleman I was interested in appeared to be much more experienced. So I was talking about my fear of intimacy with him if it ever got to that point, even kissing. And she said that she could tell me if I was a good kisser or not. Which I think now is probably a move.
Oh, it was a total move. It was a total play. For sure. No shame.
I didn't see it that way at the time. I just thought she was being a good friend.
No. And if I'm honest, I had known that I was attracted to her since that time that I had left the guy that was my first love and come to Texas. Yeah, during that time I kind of realized that I was attracted to her, but I didn't say anything.
And so anyway, back to that night, I was nervous, but I was like, okay. And so she kissed me, and she intensified the kiss a little bit, and then pulled back and apologized. And I told her not to apologize because I had liked it. And so she kissed me again, which led to other stuff, and
Things happened.
And so we kind of became friends with benefits for a little bit.
Yeah, kind of. And then I got all like emotional constipation because that's what I do. And I'm like, we should stop doing this because we're best friends and I don't want to mess up our friendship. And I thought that I could do this without, being emotional, but I'm not sure that I can separate it and blah, blah, blah.
And I didn't think of asking her if she wanted more because she had already told me when I had told her my feelings that it was never going to happen. And after what I had gone through with my first love, I didn't want to do the whole back and forth thing again and chase after someone that didn't want me. So I took her at her word and never pushed it any further. And so we went through this thing where if you asked anybody around us, they would have told you we were together, but we just hadn't officially said we were yet. But in our minds, we weren't. And so we just spent the summer, we were interested in other guys, we thought.
But also we're kind of friends with benefits at the same time.
Sort of. It was very weird. Like I said, anybody around us thought we were together and just hadn't officially said it yet. And in our minds, that's not what it was. Then fast forward to Thanksgiving, and we went to dinner with my family. And when we got home, because by this point we had rented out an actual apartment.
Yes.
So when we got home, we went to our room and we were talking, and I don't even remember how the conversation came up, but ultimately she told me that if I ever wanted to take her off the back burner, that she was interested or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait, what? That was an option? Because the last I had heard, it was never going to happen. So I went out on our patio and I called my brother and I'm like, I don't know what to do here. I don't want to lose my best friend again, but this could be something. And so ultimately we decided to give it a shot and actually try dating.
Mm-hmm.
And it went really well from the beginning. It was actually a pretty seamless transition from being best friends to being girlfriends.
Yeah.
And then that February, so, from November to February, we'd only dated for a couple of months, really.
Yeah.
But we had known each other for 16 years by that point. So that February, in fact, the day before my birthday, I remember because it was February 27th, and I was feeling sick because I tend to get sick around holidays. I don't know why. Anyway, I was in bed sick, and you proposed to me, which was so sweet because I didn't feel good, but that made me feel better, and it made a birthday that would have sucked because I was sick so much better. But I remember you proposed to me, and my first words to you were, "Are you sure?"
Like, I bought a ring, and, I tried to plan out this great proposal, and I don't know, she didn't feel good, and I'm like, screw it, I'm doing it. I'm doing it now.
And when we had first started dating, or I guess maybe a month into our relationship, I had told her, I know you don't tend to have long-term relationships, because, I'd been through all of them with her. And I also knew that in the past, she hadn't really been interested in putting down roots. She sort of a gypsy in that way. And I didn't want her to ever feel pressured to be in a relationship or situation she was uncomfortable with. So I had told her very early on, I will never propose to you. Because I've always been a suburban girl. I've always wanted to put down roots and have a family. We know that's what I want. If you're ever ready, propose to me. That's how I'll know you're serious and that you're actually ready for that kind of life. Because that's the life I want, and being married to me, that's what that means. And so she knew that if we were going to get married, she had to be the one to make that decision. So she did. She proposed. And once I was sure that she actually was ready to do this, I, of course, said yes. I was thrilled. And shortly after, I, in turn, proposed to her, because even though we were engaged, I felt like I should ask her to marry me too, and she should have an engagement ring. So it was a little cheesy, but I proposed to her back. And we had our wedding, which was very small but very perfect for us. It was a very, very small wedding, like less than 10 people. But it was absolutely perfect. It was as far as our daughter, it was a very easy transition for me to go from being her aunt to being her other mom, because I basically had been from the beginning. It was essentially a title change more than a change in role.
Yeah, I mean, she had been there through so much with us, and, even though we lived far apart, like, she was always the person that I could count on, and I mean, being a single mom, I needed a lot of help, and whenever she could, she helped us. And she didn't have to do that, but she did.
And, we had talked about me just being more of a stepmom, but our daughter only had one parent anyway. The sperm donor wasn't a parent.
No.
From day one, he wasn't a parent. And so it just seemed silly when I was already basically her mom to not just become her mom. So she's our daughter. Mm-hmm. She's not my stepdaughter, she's my daughter. We're working on legalizing everything still, but at this point it's just paperwork. Our daughter considers herself to have two parents now, which she loves, and she considers herself to have two moms.
Mm-hmm.
And
Kitty wants attention.
Oh, hi, Sarah. Hi. This is one of our cats, Dara. She has her own Instagram.
Yes, she does.
In fact, I think I'll pop it down in the description below. So if you want to follow Lady Thara, feel free.
She craves the attention.
She does. Anyway, we ended up getting married in 2016, and we've been very happily married since.
Here we are.
From me being a little brat on a bench to being with my soulmate and the love of my life. So I would say that in spite of our rocky start, things ended up pretty well.
Yeah. So here we are, almost to our 20-year friendiversary.
Yes, that's coming up.
And this fall we'll also have our 4-year wedding anniversary. So it's pretty awesome.
And now that I have her back in Texas, I can't imagine my life without her. Thinking of those years that she lived in Georgia just seems so long ago, and I wonder how I did it for so long, because I can't imagine not having her. And what I love the most about being married is people keep saying we're going to come out of the honeymoon phase and the whole being in love is going to fade, but there's other couples that we know that got married around the same time as us, and that's already happened for them. And maybe it's because we were best friends for so long and knew each other so very well coming into it, but that hasn't happened with us. We're still very, very much in love and very romantic. And yes, day-to-day stuff happens and things get mundane, as they do in any marriage.
Life gets in the way.
But we are still so much in love. I love that. We've been together as a couple for almost officially a couple.
5 years almost.
Almost 5 years, and I still feel like I fall more in love with her every day.
Aww.
So anyway, that's our crazy love story.
Yeah, it's, it has some twists and turns in there.
And I think this video will probably end up being a 2-parter.
Yeah, it's gone on pretty long.
It's hard to simplify a lifetime into a short video.
I mean, it's 20 years, of history, two people's history, really. That's only really just like scraping the surface.
It really is.
And I know it sounds cliche, but people say you should marry your best friend, but like you really should, because nobody knows you like your best friend. And like she knows how crazy I can get, and I know how crazy she can get, and like we accept that about each other, and we try to we keep each other grounded. and
because we've known each other for so long, it's not like there was a lot of mystery coming into the relationship as far as getting to know quirks and stuff, because we knew all each other's quirks. We knew what we were getting when we got together,
and we still learn new things about each other all the time.
Definitely. But I think we have such a strong foundation as best friends that when life does get mundane, as it will always do, that we have that foundation of being friends. So we have the desire to make time for the romance and the refresh the physical connection when we feel it going stale. But we also always have that foundation of friendship, because life isn't going to be passionate all the time. You work, especially when you have a kid, and demanding jobs and school that for a long time we were both in school for our bachelor's. You're still in school for your master's, and so day-to-day life will always get monotonous at times. And at that point we have our friendship. I can honestly say that there's been times we've worked together, and there's been times we've worked at different places. And when we've worked at different places, I can honestly say that all I wanted at the end of the day was to come home to her and tell her about my day. I know other women that have told me they sit in the driveway because they don't want to go inside and have to deal with their spouse and kid. And I can't relate to that, because my door would be open before I turned off the car, because I wanted to get in and see my wife. And when there's been times that we work at the same school, different classrooms in the same school, and I can't wait to get back when the last bell rings to get back to her office to be with her again. So that's because she's not just my love, but she's my best friend. So yeah, I think marrying your best friend is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's the way to go, I think. Yeah, in my opinion.
Might be a little biased.
Maybe just a little.
So anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you like it, let us know. If you have an awesome love story, feel free to share it in the comments below. I love love stories, and I love hearing how other people got together, because I think every love story is beautiful in its own right. And if you want to see more from us, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.